The clink of cutlery on porcelain whispered through the quiet terrace. Our dinners have taken on a certain slowness lately. Not clumsy, merely expected. Our rhythms intertwined, making silence more eloquent than words ever could. My husband read on his tablet, glasses sliding down his nose, while I mindlessly twirled my fork in the untouched salad. The evening breeze danced with my dress, a pale silk wrap worn bare beneath, the heat oppressive since early afternoon. The fabric, cool on my skin, hugged my waist gently as I leaned forward. It wasn't intended for allure, not on purpose, yet I observed my reflection in the window appeared gentler, more awake than it had in ages. "Remember I mentioned my son's semester wraps up this week?" He spoke, gaze fixed elsewhere. He inquired about staying with us for a few weeks to find some clarity. I assured him, naturally. I acknowledged with a nod. The fork clinked softly against the plate. "Absolutely." I reverberated and grinned. Later, I lingered by the kitchen window, rinsing glasses. He ascended the stairs. The silence deepened, more suffocating than before. The garden lights spill shadows over the grass, a dance of light and dark. I lingered far too long. Uncertainty lingered. Years had passed since nerves stirred at the thought of someone's arrival. Neither guests nor friends, and definitely not him, my Julian. He was always polite, distant, possessing a quiet intelligence that required no assertion. Yet, with the announcement of his arrival, a spark ignited within me, a gut feeling perhaps, a cautionary note. He showed up right before lunch the following day. Door thudded shut. Steps approached the path. I observed him from the kitchen, his shadow reaching for the door. The same boy I recalled, yet no longer a child. He stood differently now. Wider shoulders, diminished enthusiasm. He slung his backpack over one shoulder, one hand casually tucked in his pocket. In that moment, I realized he had taken the finest traits from each of his parents. Her cheekbones, sharp and striking, the look from his father. Yet, another layer existed. A detail I overlooked previously. He embraced his father, acknowledged me with a nod, and ascended the stairs to stow his bag. His cologne trailed in the air. Fresh, understated, and pure. I inhaled it for too long. Lunch was a breeze. Prepared a salad with grilled chicken, fresh bread, and lemonade. He offered a subtle praise for the seasoning, and I responded with a barely audible thank you. Brushing a crumb from my lap, I caught his glance at the movement. Our gazes lingered just a heartbeat too long, only a moment. Yet it elongated. In the coming days, events unfolded in hushed rhythms. Morning brew, fleeting looks, quick chats and thresholds. He always respected boundaries. He navigated his space with precision, his voice measured, footsteps deliberate on the stairs. Yet, my awareness of him deepened. He leaned against the counter, words flowing effortlessly. He would meet my gaze, then look away just as it started to hurt. I was on stage, taking my time with the laundry fold. Barefoot strides echo in the hallway. My dress was light, clinging slightly, my fragrance intentional. I convinced myself it was just my imagination. I was merely relishing the spotlight, nothing else. Yet my body, that deceitful vessel, had started to react. My skin buzzed unexpectedly. My heart raced at the sound of his door creaking open above. Thirst struck me one night. The dwelling lay in shadows. As I entered the hallway, the silk of my nightgown brushed softly against my legs. As I crept toward the kitchen, a shadow flickered at the stair's edge. He stood there, bare-chested, a glass of water gripped tightly. Our gazes locked in silence. The silence felt comfortable. It was electrified, thick as the atmosphere before chaos erupts. He nodded and slipped by, not touching me, yet near enough for me to sense his warmth. I stood still, heart racing, as if caught in a moment of shame. I hadn't done a thing, not at this moment. I lay in bed, wide awake. Beside me, my husband snored, softly, serenely. I stared at the ceiling, fingers grazing the sheet's edge, searching for the name of the feeling curling deep in my stomach. It was not guilt. It was not longing. It was a thrill of expectation. It was even worse. The morning dragged on. I lingered before the mirror, scrutinizing my reflection with a stark intensity. My body remained unchanged. Yet no. My skin flushed with awareness. Flushed skin. I wore a cotton blouse unbuttoned to hint at a mishap. A knee-length skirt, understated. Yet I understood the impact. I dressed for myself. I repeated that to myself. Yet I wasn't dressing for him either. In the kitchen they were discussing books, power plays, updates, matters of the past. As I poured the coffee, I sensed his gaze tracing the line of my back. Then I turned, met his eyes, clutched it. He grinned, not by his lips, only through his gaze. A shift stirred within me once more, subtle yet permanent. I avoided that room unless it was essential. It wasn't precisely a rule, more akin to a subtle intuition, the sort you pursue instinctively, avoiding cold water and awkward chats. The guest room lay hidden in the far corner of the second floor. It gazed upon the garden, the most serene corner of the home. That morning I walked toward it, laundry basket in hand, carrying an unnamed weight within me. He stepped out for a run. The door clicked shut, the steady beat of his footsteps on the gravel path. The late summer sun pressed against the windows, yet inside lingered a hint of morning's coolness. The scent in the room had changed, inviting, strong with notes of zest and an organic undertone. His belongings lay strewn, not in disarray, but in a testament to life well lived. A shirt hangs on the chair, a bag lies half-zipped on the floor. A book rests open on the windowsill. The bed lay in disarray. An empty glass rested on the nightstand. The space was overwhelmingly intimate, entering a mind's realm. I set the basket aside and crouched to grab some socks from under the chair. The hem of my robe slid up my thighs, tugged by gravity and my body's angle. It happened by chance, or so it seemed. Yet I didn't take it down either. My fingers brushed the fabric of his t-shirt, lingering for a moment. It lingered, a warmth echoing the memory of his form. I envisioned its grip on him, wrapping around his chest, draping over his shoulders, pressing against his back. A voice from behind me said, "You're up early." I pivoted quickly, t-shirt clutched tightly. He lingered in the doorway, barefoot, clad in just shorts, sweat glistening on his collarbone. Keys in one hand, the other grazed the frame. His face showed no emotion, yet his eyes they observed intently, quantifying. "I assumed you were still gone," I said, attempting to calm my voice. "Gathering laundry." He entered the room, softly shutting the door. It wouldn't snap closed. It murmured, and somehow my heart raced. "I can manage my own mess," he said, taking the shirt from my hands. Our fingers barely touched. Flesh meets flesh, if only for a moment. Yet it ignited a sudden piercing sensation beneath my ribs. "Sure," I whispered, glancing away. "It's merely a routine." We stood there, silence stretching like a taut wire between us. "You're aware," he began, yet left it incomplete. "Huh." I gazed upward. "You're aware." Silence spoke volumes. He was correct. I knew. I stepped back slightly. I felt the urge to go, to carve out room. Separation. I shifted, creating a way around him. As I shifted, he leaned in slightly and our gazes met, and something shifted. It was brief. There was no rush, yet it was precise. Exact. Like a sharp edge, slicing through one chapter of my existence to reveal another. Warm lips, a hint of salt from sweat. Gentle. And just like that, it was over. I withdrew, not harshly but decisively. No apology came. He offered no explanation. He simply stared, expectant. He understood that what followed was beyond his control. I started, yet left it incomplete. I was at a loss for words. He acknowledged with a nod. "I'm aware." I stepped outside. To the bathroom, no detours. Secured the entrance, gazed into the mirror. My lips were slightly puffy. Heat rose to my cheeks, yet it was my gaze that had transformed. I ran a finger along my neck, sensing his mark even without his touch. The moment lingered, a memory etched in silence. It validated all my unspoken emotions. My husband lounged on the sofa below, absorbed in the headlines. He glanced upward, a smile breaking across his face. "All good?" he inquired. I acknowledged. "Simply cozy." I spoke. That evening, I prepared dinner in a modest house dress. Delicate cloth, gentle cotton. embracing where I feigned ignorance. My body buzzed with energy, each motion, each noise more intense than ever. He slipped into the kitchen silently, filled a glass with water, remained silent. Yet, in his movements, in the fleeting glances, everything was revealed. I found myself yearning for it once more. Forget the kiss, the gaze, the thrill of recognition. Not as a wife, not as a hostess, but as a woman, fingers trembling at the echo of footsteps behind her. The following morning unfolded in a peculiar hush, relaxed. No, we had moved beyond tension. It had transformed entirely, something subtle yet perilous. The sunlight danced on the kitchen tiles, while my husband tapped his spoon against his coffee cup, lost in the paper. Every sound pierced the air, more distinct, as if the house had awakened to hear. He departed for work at 10, a gentle kiss on my cheek, casually noting a budget call later. I smiled and nodded, yet my body remained tense, breath constricted beneath my blouse. I saw him leave, tires crunching on gravel as he vanished from view. I heard movement above. A door slowly creaks open. Steps echo, followed by the gentle whisper of fabric. I stayed down. I lingered by the sink, peeling an orange, letting the juice envelop my fingers in a glossy sheen. At noon, I found myself in a quaint downtown cafe, reconnecting with an old friend after months apart. It was her concept, a sudden note, a laid-back lunch proposal I agreed to without hesitation. I had to escape the house. From me. She showed up late per usual, brimming with vitality, boisterous as if to mask the chaos within, a facade of control. "How's the marriage treating you?" she inquired, amidst the cool sip of iced tea and the untouched salad on her plate. "Steady," I remarked, grinning. It was a smile caught between honesty and deception, a fragile mask for unspoken feelings. Her laughter echoed. "I wish I could be you. Honestly, if I have to pretend one more time, I'm going to start billing by the hour." I chuckled, or perhaps something akin to it. A heaviness lodged in my throat. I stopped pretending. I felt overwhelmed. Excessive speed. Excessively unrefined. She rambled on about her husband, her kids, the never-ending loop of duties and sacrifices. I heard, affirmed, provided feedback as needed. Yet my mind wandered far away. His eyes lingered in my thoughts. Their gaze had explored me just before that kiss. The gap lingered untouched despite the door's finality. After our meal, the waiter unexpectedly delivered a takeout bag I hadn't requested. He offered a polite smile and remarked, "From the gentleman yonder." I spun around yet found myself alone. The corner table sat vacant. Curious, I unzipped the bag. A simple brown napkin lies within. A brief message scrawled in crisp, recognizable script. It was no accident, you know that. My fingers gripped the table's edge. A straightforward message. Filmmaker. No name existed. Silence prevails. Only a confirmation. Of all the unspoken words. With precision, I folded the napkin and slipped it into my bag. My friend overlooked it. She scrolled through her phone, absorbed in the screen. Her voice faded into mere background noise. We parted ways at the entrance. She embraced me fiercely, suggested we make this a regular thing. I nodded, expressed my gratitude, and made my way to the car, my legs feeling oddly detached. He stood on the opposite side of the street, unconcealed, no smile, merely poised, fingers tucked away, observing. Vehicles flowed around us, vehicles of all kinds. I stayed still. He didn't either. For a minute we stood apart, surrounded by chaos, yet utterly isolated in that instant. Next I pivoted, entered the vehicle, fired up the engine, hands trembling. My heart raced wildly, free from remorse, not out of fear, born from adrenaline, from the nameless. Home again, the weight of the house pressed down, motionless. The space felt constricted, the walls draw near. I placed my purse down, entered the kitchen, and froze. He arrived 30 minutes later. He returned, towel over shoulder, hair a bit messy. He averted his gaze initially, filled a glass with water, resting against the counter. "Did you go somewhere?" he inquired nonchalantly. I answered, "Cafe. Caught up with a friend." He nodded, eyes drifting to the window. Once more silence reigns. Yet this silence felt distinct, one that reveals everything. A gentle embrace that lingers, a constant reminder of its presence. I started making dinner, chopping vegetables with an unexpected finesse. He lingered in the kitchen, propped against the counter. Observing me, silence prevails. His gaze pierced the back of my neck. Every time I reached for something, the curve of my arm felt it. I once let a knife slip from my grasp. With grace. Yet it felt as though my fingers had lost the art of grasping. It clattered on the tiles, spun, then settled, its direction fixed on him. He stooped to retrieve it, gave it to me, our fingers brushed together. Contact remained minimal once more. Almost absent, yet my breath faltered. Silence enveloped him. Yet his gaze revealed all. That evening we lounged on the couch. Us three. My husband engrossed in his tablet, his son lost in the glow of his phone, and I feigning the art of knitting. Our legs were almost intertwined, the space between us negligible. My fingers quivered around the yarn. He moved a bit and our knees touched. Not on purpose, yet it wasn't by chance. I stayed still. I stayed close. Finally, I looked up and met his waiting gaze. Calm, incomprehensible, steadfast. Silence reigned between us. No need arose. Subsequent days unfolded in a blur of mundane rituals. Or so it seemed from the outside. Sunrise brew, common areas, courteous exchanges. Yet beneath those mundane instances lay a pulse, a heartbeat shared just for us. Each action was deliberate. Each pause heavy with meaning. We were acting, not solely for my husband, yet for us, acting as if all remained unchanged, that we remained within bounds. A path remained open, yet we understood more. My husband, unwavering as ever, stood firm, calm and collected, mindful as a man does when he believes his universe is aligned. He overlooked my hesitation by the guest room door. Or how my gaze held a moment too long when his son entered the room. He missed the way my body tensed as someone brushed by in the hallway. I grew cautious in my own space, acutely aware of my surroundings. Yet I had grown sensitive to the distance that lingered between us. One evening, the three of us gathered in the kitchen. It was now routine. My husband slips away to his office post-dinner, while I tackle the cleanup alone. His son strolled in, nonchalantly offering assistance. He glided effortlessly through the night, calmly slicing apples as water boiled for tea. Silence reigned initially, only the rhythmic tap of a knife on the board. The kettle starts to hum, faint creaks of footsteps above. He then uttered a word. His voice was hushed, watch out, yet resolute. I don't mean to perplex you. I stood still, changed. Gently, he averted his gaze, cutting on piece by piece with relentless precision. Yet I believe you already are. He pressed on. Perplexed, I suppose. His hands captivated my gaze, as his knuckles flexed. In the measured tranquility he upheld. I'm not, I started, yet halted. I doubted myself too. At last he met my gaze, straightforward, with unwavering confidence, not a trace of doubt or regret. You sensed it as well. It was mutual. If you want to act like it never occurred, so be it. I won't insist. Be honest with yourself. His voice held no anger, cold, no warmth, simply reality. The elusive, excruciating truth that most shun relentlessly. Words escaped me, the silence hung heavy, a tightrope of tension. Steam rose as I poured hot water into the mugs, blurring my sight. I have a spouse, I finally spoke up. The words crumbled on my tongue. Do you really think I'm unaware of that? He retreated, allowing me room, yet his presence lingered heavy upon me. I'm here to create, not to ruin. He said, I can't pretend I don't see you. He exited the kitchen, carrying the plate of fruit. I lingered at the counter, the kettle's whistle now a distant memory. Fingers clutching the sink's edge. It was never about his words. He was undeniably correct. I craved visibility. I craved it in a way I hadn't acknowledged in ages. I had meticulously conformed to expectations. Calm, observant, subtly alluring, yet always respectful. A spouse. A woman who maintained just the right allure. never tipping the scales of domestic harmony. The scales had tipped. In the stillness of night, my husband reached for me in bed. His hands felt known, refined. He touched my arm gently, familiar, glided down my back, murmured something gentle and instinctive. I gave in. I stayed still, yet my body felt icy. Not in heat. In reply, he mistook my calm for fatigue, pressed his lips to my forehead, then walked away. I lay there wide awake, gazing at the ceiling. The gentle whisper of the fan caressing my skin. A silent inquiry. What was my flaw? Why does the familiar now feel like emptiness? Why did his comforting presence intensify the ache within me? His son's gaze lingered in my mind. Truth unveiled. Control. His silence spoke volumes. Merely presented his consciousness. His essence. He never attempted to charm me. He hadn't laid a finger on me since that kiss. Yet my body ached more from his absence than from any other pain. The following morning, I lingered before the mirror more than I typically would. My reflection remained unchanged. Yet I wasn't. A fitted navy skirt adorned my figure. Unassuming. Organized. Subtlety whispered. Never proclaimed. A white blouse, its delicate neckline dipping just low enough to feel purposeful. I selected lace beneath. Not that anyone would notice. Yet I would be aware of its presence. It stirred emotions long dormant within me, warning. Living. Breakfast was made in silence. My husband flicked through his phone, tossing out comments on emails now and then. The son walked into the kitchen mid-meal. Our gazes locked. Only a moment. In that fleeting look, unspoken truths lingered. Later, I saw him in the hallway. We pressed on. Untouched. Yet our shoulders touched. Only a tad. My breath halted. His hand twitched, a fleeting gesture as if yearning to touch me. He did not. I let him go. The heat lingered long after I turned my back. During dinner, he proposed the trip. Wednesday evening arrived, rain starting in the late afternoon. Unwavering, slender. A rain that draped the windows in moisture and made the floorboards whisper. 3 of us gathered at the table, savoring grilled vegetables and salmon, a serene, wholesome meal reflecting our shared existence. Equilibrium. Expected. Let's escape this weekend. My husband said. He remarked, slicing into his fish. A brief journey, perhaps by the water's edge. Family time feels long overdue. He spoke it with such nonchalance, devoid of any irony, as though everything remained unchanged in our home. It felt like an unspoken connection lingered just out of reach. I took a sip of my wine, gaze lowered. I delayed my response. That sounds nice, said his son. His voice remained steady, yet its heaviness pressed down on me. I glanced upward, held his gaze just a moment too long. He remained expressionless. He was not obliged. The journey was secured by dawn. A seaside hotel, a space adorned with white sheets, expansive windows, and a view that enticed yet lacked closeness. Bags were packed in silence. The journey spanned 3 hours beneath overcast skies and endless quiet, broken solely by the radio and my husband's sporadic remarks. I perched in the passenger seat, legs crossed, hands resting in my lap. He lingered behind me, his gaze occasionally brushing against the nape of my neck. My skin reacted uninvited. A reception mix-up occurred at the hotel. Just 2 rooms left, not 3. The clerk expressed regret and suggested relocating a cot to the bigger room. My husband dismissed it with a grin. Sharing is possible. It's merely a weekend, he remarked. You both seem to click just fine. He spoke with warmth and trust. He surrendered the keys, oblivious to the consequences of his action. We made ourselves at home. The room held 2 beds, distant enough to create the illusion of separate realms. The space separating them felt fragile. First he showered. By the window I sat in silence, gazing at the ocean, knees hugged close. The water's rush beyond the bathroom door echoed unnaturally. He stepped out, hair wet, towel draped over his shoulder. I remained silent and entered for my turn. The mirror clouded, yet I glimpsed my flushed cheeks. My lips parted, body thrumming with unidentifiable tension. I slipped into a cozy cotton nightdress, lengthy, unassuming, yet subtly adhering due to the dampness. The fabric hugged close, not by design. From necessity. We stared at his tablet, a series we feigned interest in, though our minds wandered elsewhere. Shadows danced across the room, shaped by the flickering screen light. I perched on one bed, he on the opposite, the sound muted. Eventually, he rose to draw the curtain shut. He stopped next to me on his way back. "Are you all right?" he inquired, voice hushed, personal. I acknowledged, simply exhausted. He stayed still, his presence was near, almost grazing, a touch so delicate it felt like a dream. Yet, I never envisioned how my skin would respond. A subtle, unbidden shiver. "That morning lingers in my mind," he said, "in my room." My gaze fell upon him then. We were no longer apart. He couldn't shake it from his mind, he added. I remained silent. "No need for that." He bent closer, deliberately, allowing me every opportunity to pull away. "No." Our lips touched softly yet assuredly. This time it was expected. Without doubt. This kiss was intentional. It was consent. He stayed close, his presence lingering, still a silent anchor. The kiss intensified for a moment, not out of urgency but from heaviness. We separated in silence. No necessity existed. He climbed back into bed, settled down, and switched off the tablet. I reclined, heart pounding, senses heightened like never before. Silence buzzed with energy. The ceiling loomed above, his silhouette barely discernible in the shadows. Past midnight, I turned to him. Once more our eyes locked. The ocean whispered beyond the glass, and I found myself unwilling to surrender to sleep. I wished for the silence to last an eternity. Morning light broke as my husband rapped on the door, just before breakfast. We replied apart, as if our words had barely crossed all evening. His essence lingered on my lips, my body shaping my every move. Over toast and coffee, my husband brought up an unmissable meeting back home. He had to depart that evening, yet we could linger for another night if we chose. I hesitated before responding. The butter cascaded over the toast, while coffee dripped steadily into the cup. I finally nodded gently. Perhaps. Post-breakfast, I went back to the room solo. My heart now beats anew. Neither hurried nor lagging, but driven by intent. My body moved with purpose, as if it understood its desires. I perched on the bed's edge where he once lay. The pillow lingered with his aroma. I pressed my palm against it, only once. I rose and gathered nothing. His departure left the room hollow. That evening, my husband came home as expected, explaining he had meetings and a client dinner he couldn't miss. In the hotel lobby, he embraced me softly, kissing my cheek with the familiar, distant warmth he'd offered for years. I smiled as he rolled his bag through the revolving glass doors, his silhouette flickering in the reflection before disappearing completely. He was completely unaware. Not at that time. Still waiting, we lingered. One last night, he murmured, to savor the sea breeze and stillness before facing reality. The words hung in the air, a mutual cover for what remained unspoken between us. The night grew colder. The coastal breeze slipped into the room, even through closed windows. I donned a white robe from the hotel and navigated the space, feigning unfamiliarity, though it was anything but. Never again. He was absent. Absent from the space, not in body. He claimed he needed to walk to clear his mind, then vanished after dinner, taking only a light jacket and his silence. I lingered. In the dark, I sat at the desk, the flickering blue TV casting its glow across the room. I left it off. I stared at my silhouette on the dark screen, legs crossed, arms snug against my body. I reflected on our actions, or rather what we nearly accomplished. The kiss in that room ignited something within me, yet it concluded with restraint. Once more, I was torn between relief and devastation. Yet, the restraint wasn't about distance, it was closeness. Perilously close, spinning chaos. A soft creak marked the hour, just after 11. He entered, darkness enveloping him. In the dim light, our gazes locked. I remained silent, no need for that. He faced me, hands resting, eyes unwavering. Weary, he mentioned he walked to the docks. Uncertain, yet I pressed on. I acknowledged. He reached into his coat pocket and said, "And then I wrote something." He passed me a creased piece of lined paper. Commonplace, no envelope. I paused, uncertain of my reading choice. He rose, entered the bathroom, and gently shut the door. I revealed the page with care. The handwriting was neat, hurried yet clear. Skip the introduction, no salutation. Your gaze constricts my breath, as if you're holding back. Your presence fills the room before your form comes into view. I'm unsure what this is, yet I desire its end in the realm of imagination. I gazed at the words, looping through them endlessly. They lacked poetry, they were straightforward. They were straightforward. Truthful, they filled me with fear. Every sentence resonated within me, a heartbeat of words. He stepped out of the bathroom, silence hanging in the air. Crossed the room, paper slipped from my grasp. I won't proceed if it causes you pain, he stated. I won't pretend I don't think of you every moment I'm close. I breathed out. A noise. An unplanned release. He took a seat once more. Nearer now. The silence lingered, yet it felt transformed, uncharged, completely filled. And then he spoke it. You sense it as well. I'm aware you do. And the most painful truth was that I did, beyond mere stolen glances or the echo of a kiss. Yet, beneath the surface, with the pain I brought home, I had started to fear the monotony of my past existence. How quickly the routine turned unbearable. I shut my eyes, allow my shoulders to ease a bit. This can't last, I murmured. This leads to nowhere. So don't, he replied. Simply allow it to exist. For the moment, nothing guaranteed. His voice remained steady, subdued yet distinct, unconvincing, simply truthful. He sought nothing, he presented gifts. I came to see its rarity, to exist without expectation, to be observed without the pressure to act. Later, as he slept, I lingered by the window, observing shadows of waves caress the shore. I felt no victory, no shame was felt. I sensed a pulse in my grasp, delicate, genuine. Silently, we departed the hotel the following morning. The journey home stretched on, punctuated by chatter, a pit stop and shifting skies. The house welcomed us in silence. My husband had left. A note on the counter indicated his late return. Gatherings. I settled into my room. The robe entered the wash. The bottle of perfume returned to its place on the shelf. The necklace lay in the drawer, as if it had never been worn. I entered the guest room. The bed lay in disarray. The book rested, pages splayed on the desk. I tucked a folded letter between its pages, a reply. I wrote little, only a single sentence. For years I lost myself. Now I'm finding me again. I set the book down, shut the door, and headed to the laundry. The ensuing days were marked by a quiet, yet devoid of tranquility. It was the stillness before the inevitable shift, a stillness that vibrated through every instant. As the stillness hangs before the storm, as the moment before glass breaks. At breakfast, all remained unchanged. My husband read the news, toast in hand, his voice steady. His routine remained steadfast. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, bathing his hands in warmth as he cradled his mug. The details stood out more than his words. Illumination. Its impact on him, how it left me untouched. His son sat across the table, quiet as a shadow. He avoided my gaze. There was no need for him to. His presence lingered in the silence of unspoken thoughts. His presence lingered in my hesitation, in the tension coiling at my spine, in the hollow ache of my throat with each swallow. No kisses followed the hotel stay. No pilfered caresses. No correspondence. Yet a change had occurred. Vital. We entered a realm of understanding that needed no reiteration. The tension shifted from possibility to mastery. I convinced myself we had found a balance, that no other events would unfold, to traverse the edge of this longing without succumbing. I held that belief. Nearly a week, until the evening in the garden. Friday arrived. The air weighed down with the essence of late summer, rich with the scent of earth, freshly mown grass, and a hint of sweetness reminiscent of jasmine. Soft yellow arcs from the garden lights danced across the path. My husband retired early, citing a headache. I stood by, feigning care for the greenery. He emerged silently as always, from the darkness into the gentle glow where I waited. "You're still awake," he remarked, a declaration, not an inquiry. I nodded, eyes averted. "It's cozy, sleep eludes me." He moved in, just enough to sense the warmth of his body close to mine. I stood my ground. "Why the charade?" he inquired softly. My breath halted. "What's the act about? This isn't your end." I faced him then. Gradually, the hose fell from my grip, water gushing into the earth, abandoned. "You believe I'm indifferent," I replied, my tone nearly unwavering. "I believe fear grips you," he responded. His gaze was serene. "Kindness prevails. Too easy, only here." The same excruciating truth resurfaced. "The kind I couldn't evade." "What do you mean?" I murmured. He asked, "What occurs when you cease the pretense?" A moment of silence, a lengthy peace. The water gathered, saturating the soil around the plants. A wind chime clinked softly, then fell silent behind us. He moved in. This time I stayed still. Unwavering gaze, held my breath. "I want to go," he stated. Next day, just a handful of days. Only we. Words dropped into the void, sending ripples that widened with each heartbeat. I stated it plainly, no question asked. "Absolutely. What comes next?" Unsure, he stood firm. I averted my gaze, took a few strides along the trail, the cool grass kissing my bare soles. His gaze trailed after me, the sky hung heavy, marred by clouds. I held myself tight, silence enveloping me for a moment. "I realized you weren't asking me to escape." "No," he replied. "I'm inviting you to join something." By my side, for a fleeting instant. I faced him once more. The garden light kissed his face, turning it to gold. "Promises aren't my forte," I replied. "I'm not requesting any." "So what do you want?" His voice remained steady. "Stop pretending this is mere curiosity. You confess your desire to be close, as it rekindles your spirit." Simply because I do. My throat constricted. My hands trembled at my sides. "Tomorrow I can't leave," I whispered. "It will be seen." Then arrives the following day. His tone lacked urgency, no begging. Only existence. Only the proposal, the harsh reality. He extended his hand then. Only just. He traced my wrist with his fingers. A whisper of a touch. A mark left after a perilous encounter. He walked away, leaving me behind. Alone in the garden. The hose continued to flow. My feet were drenched. I lingered in the darkness, long after the light faded. Upon returning home, I found the letter I had tucked in his book resting on my pillow once more. Identical page. My words marked in ink. For years I lost myself. Now I'm back. In his script below? "Keep going." He let it go. The proposal lingered in the air, halted, silent. A lingering note in a melody forever unresolved. I always thought he would remind me, inquire about my decision. Yet he did not. The silence weighed more than any burden could. The following day drifted by, lost in a fog of routine tasks. The morning vanished in a frenzy of scrubbing, bristles digging into metal, hands protesting with each relentless stroke. I arranged the pantry, cleaned the blinds, and drifted through the house, hoping movement would calm my restless thoughts. Yet it failed. I glanced at the clock, then the window, anticipating footsteps on the stairs or a knock that never arrived. Silence enveloped us. We crossed paths in the hallway, laundry baskets in hand, moving in opposite directions. His hand grazed mine for a moment, maybe by accident, and I almost let the basket slip. That was it. The constraint was intolerable. By evening, a stiffness of indecision gripped me, a hesitation rooted not in confusion but in fear. I was certain of my desires. I wasn't sure I could bear the desire. My husband came back from his weekend trip late that night. His suitcase thudded gently by the door, and he pressed a weary kiss to my temple, the familiar warmth of his travel-worn affection lingering. The scent of cologne mingled with weariness. I inquired about his hunger. He was not. We lingered in bed, wrapped in our own quietude. He flicked through his emails. I gazed at the ceiling, contemplating a life beyond my grasp and the person I was destined to be. At midnight, I rose silently and slipped into the guest room. Desolation lingered. Sheets remained perfectly arranged. He's nowhere to be found. I pushed the door open and entered, enveloped by silence. The book he had been reading lay on the desk. The very one where I once tucked my letter away. I opened it and scanned the pages until the right one appeared. It vanished. Absent correspondence. No trace. Merely a typical page in a typical book. As if it had all been erased. Still, I was certain he had read it. He responded. He instructed me to keep going. Yet I did. I lingered endlessly. Uncertain of the duration. Just enough for the atmosphere to shift. Just enough for my breath to steady. Long enough to realize I couldn't continue this way. Silence won't do for love. Embracing it instead. I went back to bed wide awake. My husband leaned in, his hand finding its place on my waist. I shut my eyes, seeking a sensation. I wished to, yet my skin remained unyielding. My breath remained steady. My heart remained still. As dawn broke, I prepared breakfast quietly. The aroma of coffee and toast enveloped the kitchen. Yet the heaviness in my chest lingered. My husband departed early for a meeting. His son stayed above. Silence enveloped the house. At 10 the stairs creaked. I stayed put. He slipped into the kitchen, lingering behind me in silence. His presence lingered in the air, the warmth of his presence, yet no contact. Next came his voice. Minimal. Silence. I'm off. Pivoted then. Now. I've packed already. My gaze fixed on him. His expression remained serene, calm and collected. Yet his eyes remained shut, his jaw tightened, a mask for his hidden feelings. Why not? He merely shrugged. Now's the moment. That's insufficient justification. Negative. He spoke, yet it is the truth. I folded my arms, hoping to keep myself intact. You promised not to hurt me, I murmured. I truly meant it. So why are you going? He breathed out gently, approached the counter, rested against it. Being away from you only intensifies my desire for it all, for I believe you desire it as well. Yet you resist. Disappearing isn't necessary. I must cease being your source of tension. Silence enveloped us. The clock in the kitchen ticked away. After a brief moment, he dug into his pocket and retrieved a small object. A creased sheet of paper. I penned a piece. He uttered. To you. There's no rush to read it now. I held back. I just glanced at it. Then gazed upon him. I regret that kiss. I spoke. Negative. He spoke softly. No, you don't. I glanced down and finally accepted the paper from his grasp. Will you return? Should I? No response. He pivoted and exited. The door clicked shut. Next, the engine roared to life. Next, nothing. In the kitchen, I clutched the note. Uncertain if I had lost something or freed myself from it, I finally opened the paper. It was brief. There was no need for you to trail behind. You never sought approval anyway. Autumn came suddenly. The yard's trees transformed in an instant. One morning vibrant green. The next, leaves dulled to gold and copper. The air turned crisp and arid. The light shifted as well, gentler, slanted. It slithered over the kitchen tiles, casting elongated shadows, while the walls fell into a hushed stillness. The entire house exhaled a different air, as if preparing for an unseen event. He had vanished for almost 2 weeks. Since then, a peculiar stillness enveloped everything, only chaos. It was much heavier. A moment of stillness, a void. I navigated the familiar spaces of my home, performing the rituals of my existence. Yet every action bore an inexplicable weight, folding clothes, heating water, placing a dish. Everything seemed intentional, as if I were orchestrating sorrow. I refrained from calling him. No message was sent. I didn't seek it out. Neither did he. Every day, I found myself pondering his actions. Where he lay in slumber. His possible emotions. Was he hoping I'd shatter the stillness, or had he resigned to the fact that I wouldn't? One morning, as my husband showered above, I returned to the guest room. It wasn't in my plans. My feet led the way, outpacing my thoughts. The door swung open with a soft creak. The room remained unchanged. Impressive. Silence. Pristine. The book lingered on the shelf, a sweatshirt resting on the chair's back. A whisper of his cologne hung in the air, a memory stubbornly clinging on. I strolled to the bookshelf, my fingers gliding over the spines until I found the one I recalled, the place where my letter was once concealed. The one who concealed his response. I eased it open, hands quaking. It appeared. Unfolded. Unsealed. A simple slip of paper, neatly nestled between the pages, as if it anticipated my return. You remained. Yet you've changed. And signed. Undated. He had no use for it. I gently shut the book, my fingers lingering on the cover, then settled on the bed's edge. Fingers gripped the fabric tightly. I fixed my gaze on the ground, vision fading, shoulders sagging, yet tears never fell. Not today. Yet a calmness started to take root within me, not in surrender, yet in acknowledgement. That evening my husband returned home early. He radiated joy, his spirit buoyant, as he carried groceries and hummed a tune. A smile crept across my face. I assisted him with unpacking. He kissed my cheek and shared his excitement about a new client. In the stillness post-dinner, as we rinsed dishes side by side, he suggested we should escape somewhere next weekend. Only us. A brief journey. We've missed our time together. I tilted my head, observing the soap dance among the dishes, the water's warmth enveloping my skin. Sounds lovely. I whispered gently. I truly meant it. Some part of me did. As he slept beside me, I lay on my back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The wind whispered through the trees. Shadows danced on the ceiling from a distant street lamp. I felt motionless, full, unbroken. Remain quiet. At dawn I slipped out and wandered into the hallway. Silence enveloped the house. The old dresser lingered at the corridor's end, its lower drawer seldom touched. I crouched and yanked it open. Under a folded towel lay the letter I penned the night he departed. I wasn't prepared to hand it over to him at that moment. I remained unfulfilled. Yet, I opened it and absorbed the words penned in that excruciatingly honest moment. If you go, I'll remain. You'll inhabit every part of me. That's even worse than love. I lingered in that moment. I folded it with care, placed it back, and shut the drawer. The season's first wind stirred, whispering through the leaves on the path. I was uncertain about his return. I was uncertain about my desire for him to. Yet I was aware of this. I could never return to the woman I was before him. Once you've been truly seen, not as a wife, not as an idea, but as a complex, desiring, thinking self, you cannot return to invisibility. Nor would I.